Hi, everybody. Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of The Next Chapter with Tiffany. I am so excited to bring you another wonderful collaborative episode with Dr. Becky Wolery. She is another hometown girl from my hometown, Payette, Idaho, and she is a psychologist. And I'm just so thrilled that this is an opportunity for me that's a dream. So, thank you so much, Dr. Becky, for taking the time to have these meaningful conversations with me and for asking me to be a part of something that I believe will be a godsend. So, thank you, my friend. This subject matter today is something that obviously a lot of people are dealing with and has to do with what it's like to be taking care of people, such as your parents or another elderly family member, somebody you care about, and literally grieving their loss before they're ever gone. And we all have to go through it, or have been through it, or will go through it at some point when it comes to dealing with this type of thing. But we dive deep into the weeds with this. And it's kind of a segue into another conversation we're going to have here again in the next few weeks. But this will be possibly three parts, but I'm going to work my magic editing to make it the best two-part series that I can. I hope you guys really enjoy it. And thank you again for your support. We'll talk to you soon. All right, young lady, welcome back
Thank you.
again to the next chapter with Tiffany. And I can't thank you enough. Right? Where's
Yay.
I can dub in the crowd screaming in the background.
Well,
No, I
I just love that you're doing this. So it's exciting that you decided to
well,
create this next chapter in your life. I love it. In all of our
yeah.
lives, right?
Right. And it's one of those things, it's like, how big is this chapter? Right? It's gonna be big. This next
Yeah.
chapter, a book chapter is a lot smaller than the stuff that we're doing, but it's all good. And I can't thank you enough. And by the way, I didn't introduce you properly, but you are Dr. Becky Woolery, and you have Insight Counseling, and you also, I'm not sure what your title is for your nonprofit, but you have a nonprofit that you have recently got up and running. And if you want to tell us about it now or later, it's totally up to you. But I want to make sure that I put all that out there and that
Oh,
people are aware of who you are and what you do.
you're awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Well, yeah.
I will just say I'm very
Mhm.
grateful. I'm grateful for my opportunities to even have this nonprofit. It is called Insight Matters Inc. And it's only been going for a year and a half. And it really is here to give back to our community and to serve the community. That's why I started it. It's about prevention for alcohol and drug and crisis prevention, suicide prevention, especially for our youth. This year alone, the nonprofit, who I have a director who's amazing. Her name is Sarah Gross, and she started a 1P Kids Succeed program, and really just trying to target kids in the sense of helping prevent the use, and also basically helping to find protective factors. We oftentimes focus on, just preventing the problems, but I love the focus on protective factors and what can we do to help them, to keep them involved, to keep them involved in good, healthy things in our community. And so it's really been very rewarding, and it'll be just fascinating to see where it goes in this next year because it's really just getting off the ground right now.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that because for those that don't know, you or me, and don't know that where we came from, we are in small town Idaho, and I believe that our children, especially since COVID, have gone through so much suffering and a lack of connections and resources and just all
Mm.
kinds of things. And I see it now with my job as a librarian
Um,
in a elementary school, and I think it's beautiful what you're doing, and to be able to give back and to reach the most vulnerable in a
yeah.
lot of ways, to be able to be connected and have a voice, and I think it's wonderful. So thank you for all that you do, and for Sarah, because I know Sarah's a rock star. So
She is a rock star.
yes, she is. That's wonderful. So what we chose to talk about today is something that a lot of people go through, and if they
Mm.
haven't gone through it, they're going through it or they will go through it at some
Yeah.
point. It's going to touch all of us in a lot of ways. I know it's touching you right now. It's in my life right now. And what it is basically dealing with the grieving process of what it's like going through an era with your parents where they're no longer what they used to be, and how that affects us. And the way that I came, I guess, wrote this down for myself was grieving someone while they're still alive.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
is powerful because a lot of people don't think about that when you're in the fire walking through it, and the day to day, the grind, the forgetting about yourself, the just pouring yourself into the needs of what your loved ones might need and all of that and what it entails. So, um,
Yeah.
is that something that you've dealt with in your practice, in the time that you've been in your practice, that you've had people come in like during and after this type of a thing
Mm.
that affected them?
Yeah, and frankly, oftentimes they come in after because they're so involved, right? There's so much going on, and then they feel the full impact after. But it's interesting. I will just say this: after the fact, which is typically after the loss, a lot of them come in because even though they're feeling the impact, a lot of times it's just exhaustion, because they've been being a caregiver. But they also oftentimes have this sense of, why am I not sadder than I should be? Why am I feeling all these other kind of feelings that I didn't expect to feel at that point?
Mm,
And I think it's really important. This is such a great topic because it's good to help people to understand that there's a name for this. When you are grieving someone still alive, we literally just call it ambiguous loss. And frankly, it's really a very painful form of grief because of the fact that there is no clear ending, right? There's no
yeah.
ceremony, there's no permission to mourn. When you think about it, there's no
Wow.
permission to mourn. But in fact, you are mourning, grieving in different layers. I mean, there's so much involved in this because you're grieving the parent you used to have, the parent you needed, right? The parent you hoped you would still have. And then it's this grief without any kind of closure. So it's very, as you can see, that's why it's so ambiguous, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then you kind of wonder, is, this person still here? Are they gone? And frankly, both of those things can be true at the same time. And there is nothing about grief really that's wrong. It's really just, I think personally, it's really just love that is trying to adjust to the new reality.
Right. Yeah. It's like nothing that I have ever experienced. Because I obviously we all have grief. Grief touches us no matter what, but it normally it's encompassed around a loss, somebody that's no longer physically here, or a breakup, or the end of your career, or I mean, gosh, moving. There's a million things that grief surrounds. Excuse me, but it's we tend to focus solely on somebody leaving this world due to illness or a tragic accident or something like that. I just recently acknowledged that's what I've been going through personally because I'm helping to take care of my folks, and seeing the decline and seeing the this is what used to be, this is what I wished it was, this is, I miss this. And I recently saw something about what somebody had written in an article about a secondary loss, and those are like the son that goes in and has coffee with his dad every morning, or the trips that you would take once a year, the family vacations, the holidays, the used to be's. Those are all secondary losses because that is no longer an option anymore. And the way that it can completely just blow you away of, it's not just that one thing, it's a peripheral, it's a massive swath of other things that you are dealing with now that are no longer. And for me, my dad is like my, everybody knows that knows me. I'm a daddy's girl. It's pretty obvious. Always has been. I'm a daddy's girl. And, we would hunt together. There were times I'd go work with him in the mountains. I mean, just decades of things. And
Right.
seeing that tough man that was always blue collar and strapping, and you'd touch him and he was just built and his fingers were like sausages. He was just this big guy that had always worked since he was just a young man or a child with his hands and with his body. And now you touch him and he's just shriveled up and it's bony and he's unsteady on his feet. His mind is going. And my gosh, I wrote this thing out, which I sent you, and I just bawled my eyes out. And I reread it later, a couple days later, and it just the wave of emotion just flows over you of, oh my God, those times are gone, Tiffany. You can't sit there and hold on to that because it's something you have to give. I got to give myself permission
Yes.
to loosen my grip and start to own the fact that this is reality. It hurts like hell, but it's reality.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this because I know I am not alone. And I know you as well have situation with your mom right now. So it's out there.
I really appreciate you sharing this because you're right. It's oftentimes something people don't talk about. I think so many people just see it as a normal part of life, right? And when it's a normal part of life, we don't really talk about it. But I honestly went through it last couple years with my husband because he lost his mom and his dad within a year and a half, and
Right.
his dad especially struggled with dementia, and his
Mm,
dad. When you described your father, that was a lot of how he would have described his dad too. And so
yeah.
definitely we saw that pattern, and it's really hard. And there's a lot of things that go on with that, as you mentioned, I love that you use that word secondary losses, because that's what's happening. You're thinking about those things that you shared, those memories that you shared, your identity, their identity, all those things that were played into it, how you see them, right? How you think they
Yeah.
see you, right? Because if you're daddy's little girl, what does that mean for you? Who are you then, right? So it's how you see them, and he's the strong one, right? So it's a lot of how you see
Yeah.
them. So it's very much tied into our identity too. That's another complicated piece of all of this. So the grief just tends to feel so constant because you're not just losing that person, you're losing a way of living inside that world with them, right? Because that was the world that you lived with them. And
Yeah.
that's very, very difficult. Um, I do have my mother who is going through cancer right now. And so there's definitely a sudden decline. It's not the same as dementia. I did experience that with my grandmother, but it is a different kind of loss because the mind is still there, but the body is giving out, right? And so there is that loss of
Yeah.
what life used to be like. And frankly, we've noticed that on me and my husband, that they were the gathering people, right, for our family anyhow. And so then what happens if they're not there? Does the family continue to gather? Does the family continue to see each other? Do they continue to have those traditions? And sometimes there is just one person that pulls families together, and that was really the case as it was in our families. Is those parents are the ones that kept all those siblings together, right? There were always a reason to have some
Yep.
kind of a family reunion, some kind of a get together. And so that's
Yes.
significant. That is a very big change in the way life is, knowing that they're not going to be there much longer, right? And every family is different. I know your family story is much different than my family story. And so
Yeah.
the place that we play in the story, the place they play in our story, is changing regardless. It is absolutely changing. So I think it really is important to name those losses. And it really helps us understand why this can be tough, why it hurts, because of the loss of those rituals, that we've had with them. As you mentioned, rituals is basically like going on a camping trip, right, every year or something. It is really important
Right.
to look at those traditions that are now going to be changed. And our love right now for them is changing. It's not disappearing, but it's changing because we have no choice but to adapt to the situation, right? It's tough. It is
Yes.
just a really
You're
tough thing.
forced to. Yes. Yes, and the forcefulness behind it and the in your face, and there's no way that you can, look around it, dodge it, go, "No, I'm not ready for that. No, no, I'm
Yeah.
not ready. This ain't about you, sweetheart." This is about what's happening to them right
Yeah.
now, and it's either you accept it and you accept the role that you need to step into as that caregiver, or you step out, which that's happening right now, that there's certain people that should be here that are not, and there's it's just this multi-layered thing. It's that you grieve what's going on with your parents and everything that happens there, but then especially like in my case, it's this compounding
Mm,
thing of people that should be there that aren't,
mm,
that don't step up, and then it falls down to just very few that are willing to be
mm.
here and take the time to be here, whatever it is. And so it's this multi-layered dynamic of, I'm pissed off at you because
Yeah.
you are and you're not here, and you have no say because you're not here. And then there's this one that's kind of difficult to deal with sometimes. Then there's, okay, my own crap that I'm dealing with, where I find myself at times kind of going into a bit of an avoidant
Mm,
phase, stage, whatever you want to call it, of I just don't have the energy for this today.
mm.
All I want is just to chill out in my own little space, or I just want to go to the mountains. I just want to go home for a while. It's this magnitude of stuff that you don't think about, and then you're faced with it, and that's it. Yeah,
See all
yeah,
the layers? I mean, look at all the layers you just mentioned just now. The layers of,
mm,
family that might not be participating or helping or assisting, which puts a lot more of the responsibility on you. And sometimes it's not the responsibility that we're necessarily shying away from. It's the fact that I have to handle all of the emotional component, right? I'm there, I'm facing it. They don't have to see what's happening, and they don't have to face that. It's the physical for sure, because that can be exhausting, but the emotional component is equally, if not more, exhausting. And that's a really, really
yeah,
a really tough one. And it is true that we do tend to want to avoid things that are uncomfortable, right? And so there's a lot of
right.
reasons that people will stay away from it. It's just too painful, it's too hard. um, it's such a mixed batch, I'm going to say, because we know that
Oh,
typically, we also don't want to have regrets, right? Even though it's as hard as it is, regrets are hard, frankly. And if we can learn how to focus on the things that are not as painful, right, in those moments, because it really is just about grabbing a moment, right? It is grabbing a moment. It is like, okay, I was
yeah,
able to have 10 minutes just to sit with them. Those moments are so powerful, and because we
yeah,
know that we can't think big, things are going to change. No, they're not. They're going to get worse. We already know that. For them, for us, it's going to be hard. But the moments when we can connect in a way can be very wonderful and very, very powerful. And when I say that, I can
yeah.
think of a few moments that I've had recently, Tiffany. And I think it's good to talk about this because it also shifts a little bit away from the pain and the suffering that we're going through, and the grief, when we can focus on the moment. So, are there
Yeah.
any moments that come to your mind that you've had that have been awesome and powerful for you?
Oh, Yes, absolutely. So for me, the most memorable things that have happened, and again, I try to take nuggets every chance I get because I get a lot of nuggets that nobody else gets, and I
Mm,
don't take that for granted. So
mhm.
please, I want people to make sure they know that I'm not sitting there going, "For me." Girl, if I had $1 for every nugget that I've gotten with my
Uh,
parents ever since the last 3.5 years, this, this journey of chaos that started in this family it's amazing. But the most memorable in the last 6 months, 8 months, whatever, was taking my folks to the coast, and it was my
mm.
mom's dream, and I considered it kind of my personal make a wish for her,
Oh,
and it was amazing. And the crazy thing is, after it was a feat, because I mean that's a long trip for anybody, and you take an elderly person who's not always in
yeah.
full control over things, it can be awful, and then the pain and the comfort and all that. But you know what, it was great, and I'm grateful for that, and she was happy as she could be. And but I'll tell you, if we would have tried to do that same thing a month later, it wouldn't have been, it'd have
Mm,
been, nope, there's no way. Cause things just started to go south immediately. And I thought, oh, thank God. Thank you, Lord, for the fact that we pulled it off.
yeah.
So my dad, yeah. And all my life, as long as I can remember, my dad has had this monster mule deer rack. I mean, we're talking monster mule deer rack in the
That's
basement
awesome.
on just, yeah, on just a little skull cap mount with velvet on a placard, right? That was it,
Okay.
just the antlers. And over the years, the velvet fell off, and you're like,
Mm,
oh, that looks terrible. And I just thought, you know what? I am going to work my butt off to get to the point that I can have those antlers mounted on a full shoulder mount with a
yeah.
beautiful cape of a big mule deer. Well,
Mm,
I put the word out. I think it was last summer, August, I believe. I put the word out on social media, was holding this monster rack. I couldn't even get it in the view of the camera, to show people. Said, I want to find the right guy that can do this. Time is of the essence. Uh,
mm,
budget is definitely there. And if there's anybody that knows a guy or whatever that could make this happen, I would be fully, I mean, in debt. Friend of ours reached out from LeGrand and said, I know a guy, and he loves the story. I showed him the pictures and he would love
mm.
to do this. And I was like, no way. So, long
Cool.
story short, yeah, got the antlers up there. Brody Turner is his name in LeGrand, a
Nice.
phenomenal human being. He got this thing done for me in 4 months, which is unheard of. And it's a
Wow.
gorgeous cape. He had the cape and everything. So they call it a double throat patch. So normally a deer has just one big throat patch, which is a white thing on his chest. This one has two. So everybody's like, whoa, it's a double throat patch. That's beautiful. I was like, yeah, I know, right? Anyway, presenting that to my dad, and I put it out there. It's actually on my YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to watch that video, it's here
Nice.
on the next chapter with Tiffany on YouTube. And it was an emotional journey for me, and I couldn't stop crying. I get emotional right now just thinking about it
Oh,
because I couldn't sleep the night before. We went up, we got it, we made a trip out of it, came all the way back the long way through Hell's Canyon, through small parts of Oregon. And anyway, I couldn't sleep. I'm like, okay, it's dark. I can't give it to him in the dark, but I can't sleep. So the next morning, get up, get around, and go in there and present it, which is on the video. And I couldn't stop crying. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to stop. I got to pull myself together. And his reaction and the gratitude, it has been nonstop. We hung it up on the brick fireplace mantle. It's stunning, it's massive. And it's like, that's what you see when you walk into the house. And the pride he has in that,
mm,
that's and there's only one person that could have done that. That's me, because he and I share that love of
right.
hunting, and I've
Yeah.
always wanted to do that for him. So that, amongst all the tiny nuggets along the way, those are the two big ones that I've been able to pull together for my folks. And I'm so grateful. And in that, you were talking about family and about family
Mhm.
centered moments and the
Yeah.
gathering. that reminded me of how it was with my grandparents, the
Mm.
Donoho grandparents, which ironically lived just down the road from your in-laws forever and ever and
Isn't that
ever on
funny?
Park Street. But that's where essentially my dad grew up. And so
Mm.
we all grew up there too, right? You don't just grow up in your
Yeah.
home. You grow up in your grandparents' homes, in your peripheral families' homes. So it's all part of the growth experience of life as a child. And that was where we all centered because I had a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles, and of course, my
Mm.
siblings. That's where we all grew up for many, many years. And when they passed, nothing's ever been the same.
Mm.
Nothing.
Exactly.
And so you grieve that loss. You grieve the loss of that house. You grieve the
Hmm.
loss of those family connections. You grieve the loss of, the people that just started dying off after that, just one after another, aunts and uncles. And you're like, holy cow. It's hard to put into words
Mm.
as a human being how the multiple layers that go down so deep of those losses, because it's what built you as a person. It's what
Yeah.
is ingrained in you. Like I used to say, you're ingrained in my DNA, is what I tell my family. You are in my DNA. You're literally
You're in
part
my
of my DNA,
DNA.
which
Yeah.
is true, but it's multi-layered. So it's all in here and it's all in here. And then when that's gone, it's a hard pill to swallow and you have to just move on. Okay, that's nice.
Isn't that I have found that to be such common phrases that people use in so many situations, but especially with death and divorce, of course. And
Yeah,
that is, oh, just move on, or it's time to move on, or shouldn't you be moving on now, or hasn't been long enough, right? Why are you still letting this bother you? I just am shocked, frankly, how so many people are so uninvalidating and unaffirming, and I'm going to say insensitive. I do
right.
recognize that people often say that because it hurts themselves, right? Oh, if I have to deal with your grief, that's hard for me. So I just want you to move on and be better, so then I don't have to deal with it, right? It's some ways
Right.
it's selfishly motivated. It's true, but at the same time, we don't want to see other people in pain and sorrow. And but it's so important to respect everybody's own process, their own pathway. Moving on is definitely not the thing you say. Instead of more, it would be more like, hey, what can I do to help you in this journey? How can I what is it you're struggling with? Because everybody is different, right? What they might be
Yeah.
struggling with in that moment could be different than what they were struggling with the last week, because it is such a process. And so finding out really just how to reach out, how to help somebody, it can be really powerful. And I just think that that is so valuable. And we don't always know what we might need. And being able to have a safe place to talk about it, to share what we're going through, can actually, I'm going to laugh. I'm going to say this on purpose, can actually help us to move forward, not on, but can help us to move
Right.
forward, right?
Yes.
Instead of just
Because there's a
moving.
there's a difference between moving on and
Yes,
moving forward.
yes, yes. Yes, because moving on is basically saying this is, you need to move past this, shut this out. This is no longer part of your life. And I honestly say the opposite. I, I, I think for many, many people, having that person in their life who has passed is so important. It's a really important part of healing, and also staying connected. I think that is really something people don't always think about, but it's wonderful to be able to stay connected to the person that has passed on. And there's actually new grief models that are showing that that is extremely valuable, is to find
Mm,
ways to connect with the person that has passed on. And I know we're not exactly talking about that, but just to say to move on is insensitive and uncaring, and it's really not healthy, frankly, in many, many ways.
mm,
Instead of what can I do to help you with what is happening right now, and just to recognize that somebody may be struggling with what they're going through, and then looking at what they can do. I mean, we need to be sensitive to each other's. I think that's really
Definitely.
important. I have to say this. I think it was December. It was especially hard because my mom was going through. We just found out in December, and she was going through chemo, and she was really struggling. Was really in a hard place, and then she ended up being in the hospital and then rehab for a while, and but she was doing much better. And I had planned a trip to be gone, and I had decided, no, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay. But I was definitely feeling the weight of everything because there was just a lot going on. I was feeling
Hmm.
the weight of everything. And I was just really grateful, frankly, for my sister who said, you know what? Mom's doing the best she's been doing for a long time. So go away. She
Right?
basically told me, go away. I had plans to, be on vacation for a couple weeks. And I, I actually cut the plan a little bit shorter. It was honestly longer than a couple weeks. I think I was going to be gone for 3 weeks. So I
Yeah.
cut the trip shorter, but I went away and I just kind of stayed in touch, made sure things were going well. I knew I could come back earlier if I needed to. But it was amazing. That little just separating from that emotional component for a while was so much what I needed. And I really recognized that coming back. I just felt more invigorated and just not so drained. So I
Yeah.
think it's just wonderful when we can see what can help somebody, right? I'm going to ask you that kind of personal question right now for you, Tiffany. How about you? What could help you now with what you've been going through? What do you think?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't always know. I mean, I
Right.
didn't know that's really what I needed at that time. But
Yeah.
what do you think you would need?
That's again, I'm all about the person that is a multi-layered thinker because a lot
Mhm.
of answers are multi-layered. There's not just that
True.
one, this is what I need. Of course, it would be great if it was just one thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But for me, me, I'm a mountain girl. I have just been dying to get to the
Mm,
mountains, whether it's that way north to the Idaho mountains or back that way south to
mm,
Nevada. I need that connection for me.
mm,
That is my grounding. That is
mm,
my church in a
mm,
lot of ways. That's where I find my peace and where I can settle my soul, settle the noise, settle the questions, the everything. And there's answers there for me. It's unlike anything for me. Um,
mm,
that connection, and it's peaceful. That peace, like you mentioned,
mm,
getting removing yourself from the fire, because when you're in this kind of thing and you're going on going and going, it's you're in the fire, there's no walking through it, you're in it. And so occasionally, if you don't step out of it and cool down a little bit and allow some clarity to be able to think a little bit, because sometimes when you remove yourself from that fire, you can see better. The fog lifts and you go, okay, all right, I got a little, I am not elevated as much anymore. That fight or flight seems to be something I struggle with all the time anyway,
mm,
to constantly be
mm.
on. I'm on all the time. So always thinking, overthinking, planning this. I got to do that. Be here for that. Don't forget that. Go change the fentanyl patch. Go in and make sure they have food. Go run and grab them something. Check for the store. Da, 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 da. Then, okay, I need food too. I need to make sure that I have, I need to get on my vibrating board so I can just relax for a minute. I need to go to the gym. I need to,
Yeah.
I want miss my kids. I want to go see my girls. I want to see my grandbaby. I want to hang out with my other family. So yeah, it's an ongoing struggle for me to find that, because where I'm at right now, which is really hard for me, it's a very unique situation. I don't have really my own space.
Mm,
This is not my home. Where I'm at is not mine. It will never be mine. I'm alone a lot. So maybe that's good in some ways for some
mm,
times. Maybe it's not, which I know it's not sometimes, because then this thing can take things and run with it. And then you can spiral if you allow it. So yeah, it's a constant battle of, where do I need to be?
mm.
I need to be present here. I want to have this life. I want to have a piece of this. I need this and need that. So, and then of course I work full time as well. So I like to show up for the right people.
Mm.
at the right time, and be accountable and be helpful and be loving and kind and all those things, and then don't forget about this person right here, which if I
Yes.
don't take care of me, I can't be that for everybody else that I need to be. So it's a constant thing. I am very grounded in reminders all the time. When I allow myself to get a little too then I was like, oh, no, time out. Let's reel it in a little bit. Think about it for a second. Let's roll it back. Don't forget this. Let's do that. So yeah, I'm really good at that, but I am human.
Yes.
That was a good
Imagine
long
that.
long answer there, but that's what I struggle with for sure.
Well, it's just, again, not you, right? I think anybody going
Yeah.
through the situation, we call it emotional exhaustion. Sometimes we can't always escape, like I did for a while, just to get a reset.
Yep.
Sometimes we do have to just look for things that we can do. And I think it's important to, in a sense, narrow down the moment, right? What is just one thing I can do right now? And you mentioned several little things that you could go do that could help you in that moment. Taking a deep breath, getting on your machine, just little things like that can really help. And that's so important because we do need to take care of us emotionally. And sometimes it is just short, narrowing moment opportunities that we can do. And that is really powerful, though, because we do get a chance to, we recognize that while we're going through emotional exhaustion, there's a lot of underlying emotions there, right? As we talked about,
Mm,
because it is multi layered, it is complex grief. It's ambiguous, which makes it more complex. And underneath that can be feelings like so much responsibility or feeling helpless, feeling I'm not doing my best or doing the right thing. And
yeah.
then sometimes we are really hard on ourselves because we might be feeling sadness and fear in the same time, feeling anger and remorse. I mean, there's
Yep.
just a lot of complex emotions that play into that. And of course, that's going to lead to
Yeah.
greater emotional exhaustion right away, right? And so I always tell people, don't try to process everything at one time. Take a step back and focus on one thing at a time, and focus on what you maybe need to. The
Mm,
other thing I think that's really right. What is the best thing for me to focus on right now is a question to ask instead of everything. And I think we also need to remove some expectations. We somehow think, I don't know about you, but I've done this, that I have this illusion that I should be able to handle everything right, just perfectly.
oh, yeah. Hello. I'm the classic overachiever. There's no doubt
Right?
about it. No doubt about
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And frankly, there is no graceful way to watch somebody decline.
Yeah.
And there's no easy way to live inside prolonged stress because that's what that decline is about. It is about prolonged stress. And we see them being stressed and we're going through stress ourselves. And so that exhaustion can just hit. And when that
Yeah.
hits, I definitely think we need to reduce our decisions. We need to reduce what we're doing. And we just need to give ourselves a little bit of a break and recognize what's happening. And then maybe just simplify. How can I make this simpler? Because sometimes it is the need. I have to do everything. I have to do everything. Well, maybe I don't have to do everything. Maybe I
Yeah.
don't have to come into the house and make sure everything's perfectly clean and the food is ready and there's medication in it. Maybe I can just start by sitting for 10, 15 minutes with them. Maybe
Yeah.
I can just take some breaks, go walk around the block and come back in, right? There are just
Yeah.
lots of things we can do to get those emotional release because the fact of the matter is our amygdala is kicking in, our fight flight system is kicking in when we are experiencing stress. And we
Yeah.
definitely need to give ourselves permission to release that. And that can be through just having those calm moments, taking those deep breaths, taking a quick walk, um, honing in and focusing on one thing instead of everything, because
Yeah.
everything is just frankly too overwhelming for most
Boy,
people.
howdy. It is. It is. And again, I'm so grateful that God has blessed me with this brain, as crazy and erratic as it can be at times. Not like crazy, I'm gonna go do something dumb, but just the just the nonstop always thinking about things and reminding myself of, okay, it's okay to just take a step back. It's okay if you don't want to, if you don't go in there right away. My parents are not super demanding in
Mm,
that you need to come in here at 8 o'clock. You need to come in here.
mm,
Not at all. They'll say, well, we were wondering if you were feeling okay because it's 11 o'clock. Like, oh, guys, I just needed a little time for myself. And they
mm,
know that I take time for myself. And they know that I'm alone a lot, which uh, I'm okay with that because I'm okay with me being alone. But I do get lonely. There's no doubt. Absolutely, I get lonely because it's like that, you go from being with somebody nonstop for up in the mountains for 6 years, and then you're thrown into this thing of being completely separated all the time and struggling in that, because that's the other peripheral thing that happens is your relationships suffer in that when you're walking through this fire, in the fire with this situation, because your attention and focus is on something else, and
it's
so the
true.
rest of it, yeah, you just, that stuff just starts to really 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 suffer. So, but it's like the reminders I give myself all the time, and making sure that I take care of me. And so I do really well most of the time. I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh, yeah," because I just had a meltdown Sunday night that was like an extreme meltdown,
Oh
but it was
man.
brought on. Yeah, but it's okay because it was brought on by an issue with John,
Mm,
and it was on the surface, and it was ready to blow, and I allowed myself to just go hard, and I think I woke up the next morning, I didn't have lashes, I don't think, because my lids were probably over my lashes.
oh
So I was like,
man.
oh dear God, what has happened? Did you punch me in the face last night? They're so swollen. Yeah, red
Oh
eyes.
no.
I was like, don't look too. It's a good thing I had glasses on because they would have been like, what happened to you? My kids at school, what happened to you, Miss Donoho? I'm sure they would go. It's like, oh, I'm good. We're good. But I allowed
Ah,
myself to just purge it all out and say
mm,
everything I needed to say, because sometimes even when we don't voice something and we just let it bang around in here, the
sure.
difference between banging around in here and saying it is night and day, because
Yeah.
if I hear myself say these things and somebody can hear me, it's almost like a validation of, this isn't just me banging around in my own head, it's me voicing all of this stuff I've just allowed to kind of pile up for the last whatever, and it's out and it's been heard, and I feel a little bit validated, and I needed that for myself. But yeah, it's a crazy journey, and there is still underlying, not underlying, resentment that I carry from all the shit that's happened in this family,
Mm,
that I'm grieving as well. Not grieving because I want back the way things were, because the way things were was just a facade, but at the
mm,
same time, it's the compounding grief that I know my parents are going through because of it,
mm,
and the things I hear and the things they ask me, and it's like, guys, it's not happening.
mm.
I feel bad, but I'm not going to compromise my integrity and where I'm at to try to just make them happy before they leave this world. I have my boundaries, and as long as they are taken care of and their needs are met, and I get those nuggets that I continue to get, and they're happy, then that's the best I can do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's tough. Gosh, I love that you shared that, because you're right. Oftentimes saying things, getting it out is the best thing that we can do. I sometimes do encourage people to write it out before they say it out, just because sometimes what spills out can be really ugly, right?
Brutal,
Depending
brutal,
on the
brutal.
person. And not
Yeah.
always right. But
Yeah.
you just talked about the compounding of impact. And I think that's the other thing. You mentioned so many things just now. There's the fact that your relationships, that you typically maybe have spent more time on, you don't have the ability, whether it's spouses, children, other people in your life, you don't have the time to spend on those relationships. Also, the fact that things do compound inside, and we do think, oh, I'm a strong one, I just need to work through it, I need to deal with it, I've got other things to focus on. But and sometimes we can just work through it, sometimes we can just shift and we're okay. But many times I tell people, if it reoccurs and it's over and over again, that's something that you're not working through on your own, and so that's something that you do need to address in whatever way that is. So that's what you did, you addressed it, you were able to get it out, you were able to have that conversation. And so that can be really therapeutic because it's a release, as we know.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned it was very validating too. But you mentioned something else. I'm going to kind of shift to this last thing that you were just talking about, and that is the families are complicated. And families can go through, I don't know any families that don't have issues, frankly. And sometimes those issues can be very extreme in families, and that can create another complication when somebody is passing and you think about the relationships that they might have with your brothers or sisters, right? And what that looks like and how that was for them, and maybe how your parents have been hurt because of them or how you've been hurt because of them. That's a whole nother level. And it
Yeah.
can be really tough because it just feels really so unfair. And in many ways, you want to be able to protect them and you can't protect them. And you want to be able to protect yourself. And then in some cases, I will just be honest with you, some cases when we have this ambiguous grief, we can see that things can get worse. We can see the relationships can get more strained because everybody's underneath a lot of stress, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
People are also, sometimes it can improve. Sometimes people think, well, gosh, this is my opportunity to make things better, right? And so sometimes it can be that opportunity that can help improve the relationships. And I have seen it happen, frankly, both ways. So I think that's a challenge. Everybody's different. There's not one story that's the same. Everybody has their
Oh,
own story and what's happened. And then how do I've seen it where somebody's been out of a person's life, right? And then all of a sudden they came back into them, just like at the very end, as if they're coming in to rescue and to really, frankly, help themselves to be forgiven for their bad doings. Because
yeah.
sometimes they
Yeah.
have been pretty awful. I don't like to use the word bad very often, but I'll say harmful or not healthy,
Right.
more like, right? And they'll come
Yeah.
in and because they want to fix that, right? So they don't have to have as much regret or as much
Oh,
remorse
sure.
or
Yeah. It's
guilt
like,
as the case may
who
be,
is this
right?
really yeah, you go, who is this really about? Is this about
Yes.
making amends with your whoever that is before they pass? Or is it about you being absolved of your whatever for selfish reasons? I mean, definitely, which is interesting. And I will have no regrets with the way I've conducted myself with mom and dad. And I mean, zero. I will have no guilt and no regrets. And I know people, like you mentioned, I've got it in this family right here.
Mm,
It's like that's on them. It's on them. And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. It's too bad.
And there can be a lot of healing that can occur on both parties. Like even when somebody has felt, a parent, for example, because I've seen a lot of parents that have felt betrayed by their children in different ways.
Hmm.
Frankly, the most common thing that I've seen is kids that get involved in alcohol and drugs, right? And then just leave the family, steal from the family, whatever the case may
Yeah,
be. They're just so
yeah,
involved in the alcohol and drugs. But they clean up their lives, they come back, and the parents are just thrilled because they have their child back, right? That is important to recognize. It is, as much as we may be angry at a sibling, for example, for doing something like that, it is so healing for the parents because it's their baby that they bore. It's their baby that they raised. And
right.
it's their baby who chose to make these really unhealthy, poor decisions, right? That created all of this pain and this hurt. And to be able to have them come back can create a lot of peace for them. So I think that's hard because usually siblings don't like that. I'm just going to say siblings are like,
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
but think about the opposite. That's hard, but the opposite is also equally hard, is they never make an attempt, right? They never try. They never come back, even when their
Yeah. Yeah.
parents are going through, even the parents who raised them, who took care of them, who paid for them, who did everything, and they don't even make an attempt to reconnect with them, right? That is hard too. So they're
Yeah.
both difficult situations regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that's same thing with this person, the
Mhm.
brother just above me, finally got called out and held
Mhm.
accountable for everything, and just disappeared, and it's
Mhm.
devastating to my parents. But you know what, if they would have just if nobody would have stepped in and held him accountable, then I'm sure he would still be, this house would be gone.
Oh,
I mean, there would be no way that mom and dad would still be living here. And it's just the sad thing. And you mentioned how the siblings don't want somebody like that to come back in. First of all, if that person was worthy of forgiveness
mm.
and made the changes and did the work and came back on the right there for the right reasons,
That they were
100%.
truly, that they're truly humble themselves. They take
Yes,
ownership, right? They truly take
absolutely.
ownership of their
Yep,
actions, and
yep,
they really have remorse in what they've done. Yeah,
yes,
that when you say worthy, that's what I think of. Yeah.
yes. That's an honorable thing and
Yes.
worthy of my respect. 100%. 100%. But that is never. I laugh because I feel that wave of
Mm,
never gonna happen for that person,
mm,
because you have to be emotionally mature in a lot of ways to to own what you did and acknowledge I screwed up and I feel horrible for it. That takes a big person to own things like that, right? And to realize the damage that they've done and what
mm.
they left in their wake is beyond comprehension. And it's gut-wrenching to think about what my parents and other parents that you mentioned. I mean, there's God knows how many that
Yeah.
dealt with this type of thing and are dealing with it right now and will deal with it. It's just human nature,
Yeah.
but it's devastating. And I'm a fixer. I can't fix that. And I'm sorry to say, you can't fix stupid. You can't. That's John Wayne says it best. You can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid. So when you're dealing with somebody that's emotionally stunted and years and years of abuse on the brain due to alcohol and drugs, they will never be normal anyway. So it's past that point. And it's very sad because, again, this is a multi layered, sad, grieving process, because you not only grieve the loss of the connections and the life that you may have had with the people that are slowly declining or swiftly
Hmm.
declining, you grieve that what they're grieving at the same
Yeah.
time, because I know they would give, both mom and dad would give their right arms if they could have back the way that, and I say this loosely because I now know there's a
Mm,
lot of bullshit facades with this family that I
mm,
learned now was just like, that wasn't real. Oh, that hurts
mm,
sometimes. It's like, really? I was so naive and just so I just want everybody to like me. Just,
mm,
I'll do anything. And now you see the veil is lifted and you're like, oh my God. So I grieve for them and
mm,
what their version of their family wasn't exactly the reality, but that's the way they wanted it to be, because they're both, I love my parents, but there's a lot of really stunted, I'll just
mm,
say, emotional emotionally stunted because of their lives that they grew up with, and that's not their fault. But at the same time, it just paved the way for them to make bad decisions with enabling behaviors that they never should have, and that's on both sides of the fence.
mm,
So that part, I grieve. I'm just that deep thinker, so I grieve for the life they could have had,
mm,
the life they should have had, and the life they did have and how
Mm-hmm.
things ended up and how things will end up when they're gone. Because whenever, a parent wants to leave a legacy for their children, they want to leave a good legacy of their own memory and what they contributed in this world. Yet you want to also have your children reap the rewards of that legacy that they left. My parents are going to leave this world, and this is what gets me upset.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to leave this world knowing deep down, without being able to really comprehend it, but knowing deep down that after they're gone, there will never be anything connecting any of us ever again. That dies with them. Now, what the others do is not anything that I'm talking about. I'm just saying that the communication and the connection that I have now with just the one, with my sister, is only for their care. That's it. That is it. That is it. If it weren't for that, we would not have anything to do with each other, period. And that hurts my heart for their grief, knowing they will never speak it, but in the quiet of the house, when there's nobody there, I always wonder what it is that they talk about. And if they even do talk about it, because they're not built for deep conversations. They just don't do it. And I know a lot of things go unsaid, a lot of things are assumed, a lot of things just aren't accounted for, and I hate that for them. God knows where I came from. I think about that all the time, like, where did this come from? It came from so much that then, for another episode, obviously you and I are going to talk about generational traumas and things like that, and birth order, which I look forward to. But this is where this brain was formed, in watching all of this for so many years. And I grieve for them. I do. I genuinely grieve for the family they wish they had, and they could have had, and they should have had. And it's that really upsets me, honestly. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Next Chapter with Tiffany. If you'd like to seek out Dr. Becky on her YouTube channel, just look up Dear Dr. Becky.